Hello, Spookies, and welcome to Rick or Treat Horrorcast, hosted by yours ghoulie, Ricky J. Duarte. My guest today is a wildly talented actor, singer, dancer, and, most recently, for me at least, social media manager. I also refer to him jokingly as my evil minion. Welcome to the podcast, Stanley Martin.
Pew, 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 pew. Hey, how y'all doing?
I'm so glad to have you on the show this week, particularly to talk about this movie, but we'll get to that. Stanley, holy cow, you're a really talented and like kind of multifaceted individual. Tell us a little bit about yourself. You're welcome.
Yeah, I'm a theater performer. I'm a writer, producer. I've done sketch comedy. I've written plays that I've even produced. Content creator. I've content created for like different theater productions as well as different singing groups. I've worked with several different singing groups in like the past 2-3 years alone. Yeah, you name it, I've done it. I was on Broadway at one point, but like that was only just for 9 years. So yeah.
Only just for 9 years. No big NBD.
Mm-hmm.
That's so incredible. What got you interested in representing Rick or Treat Horrorcast and working for this show on social media?
Well, number one, I'm a huge fan of horror movies. So especially trying to create content for something that I love just comes second nature, I guess. I'm also a big fan of your work and your podcast, especially the first one I think I listened to was the Shaun of the Dead episode. And then that got me interested in listening to, more of your back catalog.
I love that. And tell me, what specifically about me do you love?
Oh my God, that fishing rod came right out there, didn't it?
Did I hit you with it? I'm sorry.
I feel like you're a genuine soul and you're a sweetheart and a half and like very easy to work with. And just, I like to collaborate with people that have that kind of similar energy. It makes the collaboration feel, more fun than it is a job.
Well, I was just kidding and wasn't expecting a response, but I do appreciate that one. That was really sweet of you.
Okay,
Thanks.
Take it for what it is. Okay, take it for what it is.
Wow, this is going to be the soundbite that I promote the podcast episode with.
Oh my God, no, that's just as bad as when I just did The Wiz, back in March in New Bedford, Massachusetts, and they were trying to get like funny little sound bites of all the different actors, and I actually played the damn character. So they asked me, the videographer asked me, like, okay, give a reason why audiences should come out to see The Wiz. And I'm like, because I'm in it. There, I said it. Use that as a soundbite. And sure enough, they used it as a soundbite.
I love that. Hey, I saw a video clip. You were fucking incredible from what I saw.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, sure thing. Well, Stanley, you have been a really incredible addition to Rick or Treat Horrorcast. You have been working your fucking ass off putting together the channel's YouTube page and the TikTok. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've done with the Rick or Treat YouTube?
Well, I basically uploaded every episode that you have ever done on your podcast network. So I think it's over 37, 38 episodes now.
This is 37 plus 2 bonus episodes.
There we go. Right. Well, thank you. So yeah, in the first one, all I did was basically just put a picture on it and just uploaded it. And then after, I think it was like the third episode where I decided like, I need to create like an intro, something that goes along with the music, as well as an outro with like the smoke and the haze and like including all your different social media handles, as well as like if you're doing something funny in the beginning, referencing something from that movie, I've now started to include that. Yeah, to give it more of a visual, especially since it's on YouTube. Yeah,
it's really great. It's more than just kind of the episode art. You've made it a lot more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Thank
Yeah.
you for that.
And so far, the most viewed episode that you have is the Child's Play 2 episode.
Which is so cool.
Hmm.
I think that you uploaded that one at the exact right time because it was the same time. I think it was the exact
Hmm.
same day that they announced the premiere of season 3 of the series Chucky. And so
Mm.
Chucky went viral and
Hmm.
so that was great timing. You're
Yeah.
very tapped into the cultural zeitgeist of what's happening at any given moment.
Sure, Jan. Yeah.
You're you're a lot more hip than I am. Speaking of being more hip than I am, the TikTok for the show has
Hmm.
been really, really amazing to watch grow as well. Talk about TikTok.
Yeah, it's for some reason, I think I discovered what my niche is on TikTok. Anytime I do funny memes, that's generally the one that tends to take off a little bit more than some of the longer visuals, or you know what I mean? Like there was one that I did on my own personal one. That's when it started to like, get me more followers and everything. It's did you ever see Mommy Dearest?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Did I ever see?
Well, I don't know. You could be
Yes.
new gay. I have no idea. Um, and there's that scene where Joan Crawford turns around. She's like, Tina, bring me the axe. So I clipped in a dance video of Tina Turner like holding onto an axe, just going to Rolling on the River, just dun, 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 dun. Within, I think, 2 days, it got over like 30,000 views. So I'm just like, okay, funny. Stick with the funny shtick, and I'm fine. I'm set. So anytime I've done like a funny meme or a funny GIF on your TikTok, that's the one that usually tends to take off a little bit more.
I love it. And that's so appropriate too, because something that I get feedback on a lot is kind of my taste in curating memes,
Hmm.
and so for a while I was actually had a little like a Facebook page that was specifically stupid funny horror memes, and
Hmm.
I moved on from that, but so it's a great addition for sure. What I am looking into a Discord, if we're talking about social media, Discord for the Horrorcast, so keep an eye out for that,
Hmm.
spookies, for sure. But Stanley, before we move forward, because I'm grateful to share all of this wonderful social media stuff that you are doing for the show, but I also want the listeners to get to know you. So before we move on to that,
Ooh.
where can people get in touch with you? As much as I want to keep you all to myself and keep all of your social media managing attention strictly on me, I'm happy to lend you out to folks who also need some social media management. Stanley is incredible at this, and you should absolutely reach out to him. Stanley, how can people find you?
They can find me on Instagram at Stanley Martin the Third. I'm also still on Facebook as Stanley Martin, and my TikTok, I believe, is Stanley Martin as well. And I also have a YouTube page. If you look up Stanley M 1907, that's me. Actually, the most viewed video on that my YouTube page is I did a recreation of Paula Abdul's tapping in the very beginning of Straight Up.
Oh,
Like it took
cool.
me 2, 3 weeks to figure out what that choreo is because there's no tutorial on it.
That's terrific. That's
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's a pretty hard routine too.
Hmm.
Good
Yeah.
for you. God, so
Thank you.
talented. All right. Well, we will review all of those at the very end of the show. But Stanley, I love to ask first time guests, and I actually haven't done this in quite some time. What is
Mm.
the first horror movie that you remember seeing?
Oh my God. You know what the funny thing is? Okay, I already mentioned this earlier. Child's Play 2.
Wow.
That's the earliest one that I remember because I was, oh God, I don't remember how old I was, but a lot of my cousins from Virginia were watching that in the living room. And I remember seeing very vividly of Chucky like crawling up that conveyor belt and that just being burned in my brain. But the first one I actually remember watching all the way through as a child. I think it might have been Scream.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Way too young to watch that, but loved every second of it.
We were all too young to watch that. And you love Scream. That's like your favorite,
Mhm.
right?
That's my favorite franchise. It's like it goes Scream number one, Nightmare on Elm Street number two, and the Child's Play franchise is number three.
They're all solid. Those are
Hmm.
definitely up there
And
for me.
queer coded, and some not even coded, just out there,
Just absolutely gay.
just just gay, just gay. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. That's great. I It means a lot to me to have somebody on board who gets not only me and the direction that I want to take the show in, but also has not only a knowledge of horror, but like opinions on horror.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I think that that shows in your representation of the show. You are always fun to talk to about horror. We have watched some horror movies together.
Hmm.
You're a great time, and it's nice to have you on board. Thank
Thank,
you.
thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Have you, speaking of watching horror, have you seen anything or read or played a video game or listened to some music or anything horror? Have you consumed horror recently that you want to recommend?
Yes, Megan.
Oh,
I just want to see that reaction. That's all. That's the only reason why.
okay, because it was about to get heated.
I didn't. It kind of cracks me up with that movie because there are aspects of that movie I really did love, and other aspects where I'm like, well, hold on, I don't. This doesn't. The suspension of disbelief was just right out the goddamn window. But it just made me think of, oh my God, that Judd Apatow movie that came out during the pandemic, where they're all like locked in close quarters and they're like filming this Avengers
Oh,
like Jurassic Park
yes, I
movie.
can't remember. I didn't finish it.
Yeah,
Uh,
there's one scene in it where Judd Apatow's actual daughter is they're filming this scene where this velociraptor and her are having this connection. Then all of a sudden they break out into a TikTok dance. And
yeah,
yeah, and it's supposed to be like, yeah, that would be crazy if like a movie did that just to try to sell tickets and just to try to, market themselves. And then literally a year later, Megan did the same fucking thing, like
yeah,
non-satirical. It's just that's what happened.
yeah.
That cracks me up. Yeah.
I fucking hated Megan, and it comes up on the show. This podcast is partially about my hatred of Megan and partially about my adoration of Toni Collette. So those
Oh
two
my
subjects come up
God.
a lot. But yeah, Megan, they told you to like this movie, and I sound so shitty right now. They told society to like this movie,
Hmm.
and a society liked it because they were told to. It's not a good movie. And people admit it, and you know what? But then again, I like plenty of bad movies, and I
Oh yeah,
admit
I
that.
know. Yeah. No, the only other movies I've seen recently horror wise was, oh well, I saw two of them with you.
Mhm.
The Slumber Party Massacre.
Yeah, original and
Yeah.
the remake.
Yeah, that remake, Jesus Christ. They tried their best to make it seem like, oh, this is filmed in America because, she's got an American flag jean jacket vest. And I'm like, no, that doesn't, I don't know where in America looks like, what was that? Australia or South
South
Africa? South
Africa.
Africa.
Yeah, you could not get over their accents.
No, even like the way that they were acting, I'm just like, do you think American girls act like that? Is that your training? Is this what we're doing? This your Meisner right now? Okay.
Damn. I
No,
did
that
like the movie though. Like I liked what it was doing, or at least what it was trying to do. I don't think it was 100% successful, but even just
no.
having those two guys named Guy One and Guy Two because their names are
Yeah.
Guy, and the men being disposable and being sex objects, and I liked the end goal of the film, and I think it did mostly a very good job of
Yeah.
achieving what it set out to.
I get the whole dichotomy of it all with originally how it's supposed to be like girls in the slumber party being all sexy and hot with the pillow fights and this and the other versus the men doing it, which
The boy pillow fight was, I thought it was cute.
yeah. None of them had hair, didn't care.
Not your type.
Oh, and I also saw Maniac. Didn't. Yeah. Yeah, that one wasn't for me either.
Yeah.
It's something about, okay, there's certain 80s slashers that I do enjoy, but it's generally the ones where the women fight back.
Mm.
Whenever it's a situation where they're just like, oh, I'm helpless, I don't know what to do. That's the reason why I always lean towards more Wes Craven films.
Mm-hmm.
Because even the girls that end up dying, there's still a little bit of
Yeah.
a fight, something. Yeah,
Well,
I know
that
Wes Craven
one,
prided himself on that.
because we were scrolling through trying to find something, and you suggested it, and I was like, not in the mood, and then you watched it anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So don't watch Maniac, is what you're saying, and like,
Well, the only other one that I've seen recently, but I don't know if you would consider that horror, would be The Menu. I loved that movie. I've watched it like 5, 6 times, and every time I do, I always like find a new little nuance and little detail that I missed the last time. It's such a wonderfully written screenplay too. On top of that, it's beautiful. Love it.
brilliantly acted. I do consider it
Hmm.
horror. I think it's the kind of horror movie that non-horror fans will try to convince you is not horror, like
Right.
Silence of the Lambs. It can be horror and also have commentary. You know what I mean? And the
Yeah.
menu as someone who's been in the food service industry and beverage industry for
Mm-hmm.
fucking 19 years now, I feel
Mm-hmm.
so validated by that movie. I was overhearing a table of mine talking about it, and they fully admitted that they were the problem that movie was about, and they laughed about it. And I was like, this is why the menu works, because you don't give a fuck that you are the problem and that you are
Yeah.
taking advantage of the service industry, and and that you're ruining it.
Yeah. They're the privileged and they don't give two
Yeah.
shits because they're just going to keep on doing it because they're not going to be held accountable for it.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. Also, I loved X. I saw that one recently. I keep forgetting about that one.
Oh yeah.
That's another one where I just thought it was just wonderfully written. And you could tell that there was a female touch to it because didn't she, Mia Goth, like help write the script for that one?
She helped write Pearl. She and Ty
Oh,
West
okay.
wrote that together.
Yeah.
But I have to imagine that she is in some way a bit of a muse to Ty West, because
Mm-hmm.
now with Maxine coming out, but X and Pearl are two of my favorites, especially from last year. It just blew me away. I didn't see either of them coming. And I recently revisited his first feature, The House of the Devil. And first off, it's incredible to see how far his budget restraints have kind of,
Mm-hmm.
lifted, but also what he was able to do on such a small budget. And Greta Gerwig gets her head blown off in that movie. And I completely forgot that she was in it.
Oh my God. No, and the funny thing is I actually like X a little bit more than Pearl.
Mm.
Because
We talked
Pearl,
about that. Yeah. Pearl
yeah,
didn't quite reach you.
no, it did. It just made me sad the whole
Mm.
time because I'm just like, I feel for her, and yet she's literally killing all these animals. When she stabbed that goose, I was like, oh, God damn it, this movie. Like any kind of animal cruelty, I'm generally like, I'm out. I can only handle so much. Killing off teenagers, whatever, who cares? But like the animal cruelty, I draw a line.
Right. Right. There's that website, Does the Dog Die? It's like a
Yes.
trigger warning website.
Hmm. Yeah.
They don't only talk about animals dying, but yeah, that's what it's called. Does the dog die? I think a lot of that stemmed from, in modern culture. Oh, what was the Will Smith remake of the Omega Man, where he's the last
Are,
man on Earth?
oh, it's Jesus. I mean, good thing we
Oh,
don't have any
come
like
on!
technology that can look this up for us right
I'm gonna
now.
have to look this one up. The Omega Man remake.
Is it Last Man on Earth? Like Will Smith zombie movie? What is it?
My
What is it?
my listeners are screaming right now. I Am
Mhm.
Legend.
I Am Legend.
I
Jesus
Am Legend,
Christ.
right? Because I think there's
Yeah.
the big moment where his dog gets it in that movie, if I remember correctly. And so that
Yeah.
now is it kind of sparked the whole "don't kill the animal" thing
I
in
mean, they do
today's
it in a
youth.
lot of movies. I mean, look at The Conjuring. That first one, dog dies.
Right. I recently watched the first Halloween with someone who had never seen it before. And so
Oh, yeah.
in the scene where Michael silences the dog,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then I told him how they did that scene, and he was really upset because we don't see the dog. We see the dog dangling from his, like he's holding the dog, and we just see like from his waist down, and then the dog makes a noise and its legs just kind of relax and fall, and they tranquilize the dog in real life to get that shot of the dog
Uh,
relaxing.
you know what
Um,
another one is? Did you ever see, I think it's the second VHS, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, the second VHS movie. The one where the dog has a little camera on the top of his head and there's like a whole alien abduction section in that.
I get all the VHS movies confused. I think I've only seen three of them: the first, the second, and then like 95 maybe.
Yeah, no, the second one's great. You can tell like that budget went
Yeah.
like it went up, but it's a whole alien abduction where this family and a couple of like these kids friends are like all in this cabin, and this dog has this like little GoPro on the top of his head. But literally the final shot is, oh God, spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the movie yet, folks. um the last like 13-year-old is being abducted. It's just beautifully shot. I don't know how they did this, but like he's going up and he's trying to reach for his dog, and his dog is kind of levitating too. But then after that, like, the suction stops for the dog, and the dog just goes bam, lands on the ground, and the GoPro is shaking. You can see the dog just like twitch, twitch, twitch. I'm like, that broke my heart.
Too much
Kid
for
can go
you.
away, but yeah.
Too much for you.
Hmm.
Those are some pretty good recs or non-recommendations. I'm going to recommend a movie. I'll give a little bit of backstory first. I just the other day was able to do a set visit up outside of Albany in Troy, New York, for an upcoming horror film called Flapjacks. And
Hmm.
so the movie's directed by Rocco Zevenbergen. And his first feature is called I Need You Dead. And this is going to be the kind of, it's available for free on YouTube, the whole thing. It's the kind of movie that I'm going to implore you, don't watch the trailer, don't look anything up. I'm not even going to tell you what it's about, except to say, watch it. It's going to be polarizing. You're either going to really love where this movie goes or you're going to fucking hate where this movie goes. But either way, you're going to have a reaction. And I think that is what Rocco was going for with it. It's a little bit of commentary on how everyone's so kind of like jerking off to 80s culture in horror right now. You know, there's so much how I think Stranger Things kind of oversaturated us with kind of retro 80s callbacks, and now it's just all over the place. And so his movie starts out as a little bit of like a criticizing that, and then it gets fucking weird. I think it's a great movie. I think he's an exciting director, and I had a really incredible time shadowing him. I was on set. It was kind of an overnight shoot, basically a graveyard shift. I was there for 13 hours on set, and holy cow, was this an incredible experience. His new film, I really can't say much about it. I wasn't allowed to take pictures or anything, but I was there on the biggest special effects day. The special effects artists, a number of them worked on the newest Hellraiser movie starring Jamie Clayton. And it's interesting to see the differences between a budget like that versus a smaller budget like what Rocco's doing, and to see what they were able to accomplish with it. It was just, I got my hands dirty. Literally, he had me slinging this like tapioca flour pancake batter at people. Like there's just goo all over this movie. And I also got to operate a fog machine. So when you watch it, look out for the smoke, because that was me. I had an incredible time. Rocco and the entire cast and crew were very welcoming and very just generous with their knowledge. You know, I'm starting to write my first screenplay and I intend to make this film. And so I was selfishly kind of picking people's ears here and there as I could. And I got a lot of insight. And so I'm writing up a feature article for Rue Morgue about my adventures on this set. Should be dropping within the next couple of weeks. Keep an eye out for that. And in the meantime, please watch I Need You Dead. It's on YouTube. And again, like, let me know what you think. I really want to talk about this movie, and I don't know anybody who's seen it. So
I Need You Dead. I'm going to write that down. I'm going to look that up. You know what the funny thing is? I've seen at least one or two movies from all like the different major horror franchises. The only franchise I haven't seen one movie from is Hellraiser.
No kidding.
I haven't seen a single one. Like literally, I've seen something from Leprechaun. I've seen a couple from Children of the Corn, your favorite. And
that's
yeah,
funny.
like all the different Saws, all the different Conjurings, and even some of the like 80s slashers with like, you know, your Friday the 13th, even though at one point a lot of those kind of bleed together for me. No pun intended, but yeah.
I insist, just like I watched somebody watch Halloween for the first time, I want to watch you watch Hellraiser for the first time. So I'm going to propose that we watch that on our next Hangout Watch Movies night.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. I'm just, the first two are wonderful. The remake is wonderful, and everything in between. You know what? I like part 3. I have a soft spot for it. I think that's the one that takes place in a nightclub. Whichever, it's 3 or 4. Whichever one is in a nightclub, I love.
Yeah. I've seen the Rick and Morty episode where they make fun of it. Does that count? I don't just...
Maybe. I never got into Rick and Morty. It's too much screaming. They're just yelling all the time. Which will bring me into the movie that we're talking about today, because the movie we're talking about today is loud as fuck. There are a lot of weird sound choices in this movie. Hey, Stanley.
Yeah.
What do you say we go trick-or-treating?
Sure, let's go.
But first, a word from our brand new sponsor. Hey, Spookies. Like many of you, I'm a big collector of horror VHS tapes. Some of my favorite titles include Night of the Giving Head, Buffy the Vampire Layer, Grabbin' in the Woods, A Wet Dream on Elm Street, The Last Whorehouse on the Left, Evil Head, The XX Exorcist, and The Midnight Meat Train. However, after playing them over and over and over and over, I found that the quality was becoming less than satisfactory, and I began having trouble fitting those tapes into my slot. My VCR slot, that is. Well, not to worry. All new Anonymous Head Video Head Cleaning Solvent from PigPen does the trick. PigPen's Anonymous Head Video Head Cleaning Solvent is guaranteed to get rid of all your video head problems with its strong formula and potent reliability. This solvent comes in an attractive, sleek, sexy, and spooky skull-shaped bottle. Oh, and it smells great too. PigPen's anonymous head video head cleaning solvent cleared my VHSs right up, and now I never have a problem getting a tape into my slot. And right now, you can get 20% off PigPen's anonymous head video head cleaning solvent and more PigPen products, including t-shirts and apparel, by visiting their website and using code RickRetreat at checkout. The brand is PigPen, and the code is RickRetreat for 20% off. What are you waiting for? Try anonymous head from PigPen today. Go ahead, get some head. Welcome back, Spookies. Today, we're talking about the 2001 remake of 13 Ghosts. The original movie is from 1960. It was directed by William Castle, who was very well known for attaching gimmicks to his movies and getting people to come to theaters that way. When he released House on Haunted Hill, there was a moment where a skeleton-looking ghost dropped from the ceiling and frightened people. When he released The Tingler, he had theaters install like kind of buzzers, like, you know, when you shake somebody and they have the electric buzz, those to the backs of seats, random seats, so they would go off randomly and people would scream.
And when surprisingly, that sold more tickets to women than men. It's crazy.
For a good time, go see The Tingler. Oh my God. Now I want one.
Why is the seat wet? Who sat here before? Okay.
And for 13 Ghosts, he came up with a pretty clever idea where upon entry into the theater, you were given what looks like 3D glasses, the old-timey, the original version of 3D glasses where it's red on one side and blue on the other. So this was a card that you held, and on top there was like a red bar of that red kind of cellophane plastic, and on bottom there was like a blue bar of that blue cellophane plastic. And if you looked at the movie through the red lens or the red kind of visor, essentially, you would see the ghosts. And if you looked at it through the blue, you would not see the ghosts. And you were able to pick, if you were too afraid to look at these ghosts, you would look through the blue part of this little card. This was achieved in a really clever way. The movie's in black and white, but the ghosts themselves were done in a blue tint. So if you look at it through the blue screen, it'll just blend and you won't see them. If you look at them through the red screen, they'll show up in like a reddish violet color. And so it worked. It also kind of gives the idea that they're in color a little bit. And it sold for sure. His original scheme for this was to have purchased a house that looked like it would be haunted and have thousands and thousands and thousands of keys made up. And they would all have the same number on the key except one. And if you got this one key that was the key to this haunted house, the house belonged to you. Like, he would give you this house. And he ended up not doing that and going for the ghost vision cards, as they were. I believe the commercial said you'll see them come to life in color through Illusiono, with these ghost viewer glasses, where the gimmick that he used to sell seats for that movie. Now, I have an affection for that movie because I watched it with my mom a number of times, and I did revisit it this week, and it's not great. I mean, William Castle movies oftentimes were not great. This one in particular, the best part about it is Margaret Hamilton, the actress who played the Wicked Witch of the West, playing another witch. And it's just fun to see. She never fully admits it, you know, but it's just kind of this little wink like, hey guys, we got the Wicked Witch of the West here. But the remake, Dark Castle Entertainment is who produced this, and they started out specifically to remake William Castle films. So Dark Castle is an ode to him. It was a division under the Silver Pictures label, and it was formed in 1998 by Joel Silver, Robert Zemeckis, and Gilbert Adler. And they started with the remake of The House on Haunted Hill. Did you see that one?
Yes, I did.
How do we feel about it?
The House on Haunted Hill? Yes. Which one? The original or
both?
The funny thing is, I actually kind of prefer the original a little bit more than
Oh
the
yeah,
remake.
of course. I don't like the remake personally.
I can't stand Chris Kattan in that movie. I just remember watching that and just being like, what is the point of this?
I just
What
want to shake him
why?
and tell him to shut up. He's so whiny.
Yeah.
But I love him in everything else he's ever done. It's just
Yeah.
a
Well, that's
really
why he's so popular right now.
why?
No,
Oh
he's
shit.
had such
You're
a long career.
smart ass. Wow.
Just yeah, no, him in that movie and
Chris,
just
if you're listening to this, I apologize for Stanley's rudeness. I am a big fan. And please come on my podcast to talk about House on Haunted Hill.
oh my God. See, I'm a big fan of Emma Roberts, which I know in your that Scream episode, both you and Collins were going in. I'm like, no, I liked her in Scream 4. So,
Who's
yeah.
she? Ooh, if you could see the look he's giving me right now, y'all.
Oh my God. But
Yeah,
yeah.
I think that the remake is a waste of Jeffrey Rush doing a really great Vincent Price, not
Mhm.
impression, but like an homage to him.
Right. Oh,
Just a
I've
bad
seen a
script.
lot of these movies. I didn't
We get a
realize.
really handsome Tay Diggs throughout that movie as well.
Well, yeah. And then you also have the very underrated Famke Janssen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I love when she pops up,
Yeah. Like,
and Ali Larter, who, what the hell happened to her? Final
I,
Destination,
hmm
this,
hmm
Obsessed. I love her in Obsessed.
I have a reasoning for why she's not as big as she used to be, but I'll discuss it off the podcast just in case if she ever decides to come on. But yeah, she did an episode of what is that Creep Show series that was on
Yeah. Oh,
Shutter.
she did about
Yeah.
the like haunted B and B. Yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. I didn't know
hmm
you watched that. That's cool.
Yeah, yeah. I loved the first season, and then after that, you could tell where they're just like, okay, we're allocating the budget to these particular episodes, maybe not these. Where it's just like some
Sure.
episodes I'm like, this is amazing, and other episodes where I'm like, how do I get paid to be a writer? Because this seems a little
Yeah.
cheesy.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. All right. So they started their William Castle remakes with that,
hmm
and the movie did fine. I think it was shot for about 45,000, or sorry, 45, maybe it was 30 million. I'm going to say that.
For the 2001 one
Yeah.
version. Yeah,
Um, Whatever. They did fine
yeah.
as far as box office goes. And so then their next go at it was 13 Ghosts, which didn't
hmm
do it made about the same money as
Yeah.
House on Haunted Hill, but critically bombed. People hated this movie. What's his name? Roger Ebert, who I'm always interested in what he had to say about horror movies because he
hmm
clearly did not like the genre. He discredits it. And so he's one of those people who might say The Menu is not a horror movie or Silence of the Lambs is not a horror movie, right?
Right.
Only so that he is allowed to say that he liked it. If he admits it's horror,
He's
then
the
he
original elevated horror. Like that
yeah.
person. Yeah.
So I think Roger Ebert's opinions are reflected in what people call kind of the old white men who run like the Oscars, right? It's
hmm
that generation of
Gatekeeping.
moviegoer, yes,
hmm
and gatekeeping for sure.
Yep.
But so he went on and on and on about how this movie looks gorgeous, and he's right. The production value in this movie for the small budget that they had, they fucking crushed it. The practical ghosts in this movie, there's very
hmm
little CGI. They really went ham on the makeup effects to the point that they decided not to make them transparent at all, so that we could fully see the detail in this gorgeous, gorgeous makeup art.
hmm
And but he did add it in 2005 to his most hated movies list because of all of the editing, the flashes of white light that are just incessant. This film is described as painful to sit through, physically painful, and has induced seizures in people
I was
because
about to
it's
ask that.
yeah,
Yeah.
these weird almost electricity noises paired with white flashing just every time you see a ghost. It's flash, 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 flash over and over and over again. And it just keeps happening.
Mm.
And he said that the plot was thin, the characters were unlikable, and they kept treading the same ground and repeating the same lines over and over again, which is all true.
Yeah. Yeah. I wholeheartedly agree with all of that. That plot is thinner than my hairline. Like, good Lord.
You and I are both lucky we look good with bald heads.
There you go. Thank you.
So the Dark Castle uh ended up their next feature was Ghost Ship. I'm only going on about Dark Castle because I really respect what they set out to do.
I know I'm looking at the Wikipedia page right now.
Are you? And so Ghost Ship did not do well either. And Ghost Ship was not a remake, but it's a screenplay in the vein of a William Castle film.
But here's the thing about that particular movie. Everyone says like as horror movie openings, it's one of the top 10 best like out there.
And it is.
Yeah.
It
That
is.
opening scene, once you see that, you're like, great, skip the rest of the movie. Just
Honestly,
skip it.
And
Yeah.
I adore Juliana Margulies, and I always wish that she got more work. Maybe I should talk about Snakes on a Plane sometime.
No,
I'm
she's gotten
adding that
more
to my
work. Look at the
list.
face.
Look at what?
She's gotten more work. Look at the face.
Ooh, Stanley. I'm never going to get any celebrity guests on here because they're going to be afraid of my social media manager. She did. Was it The Good Wife? I guess she did do. And of course, obviously, she was on ER before. So anyway, Ghost Ship, just like you said, it just kind of falls apart. Like, and not even slowly. It's that opening scene and then the rest of it. And Gabriel Byrnes is in it. I adore him.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Ghost Ship didn't do well. They did remake House of Wax as well, which has gotten a following now. It's a better movie than you think it is. I consider it more of a remake of Tourist Trap. Actually, a lot of people do. Than the original Vincent Price House of Wax.
Yeah.
Which I think was actually a remake of another movie. Regardless, they also did Gothica with Halle Berry. And The Reaping, Rock and Rolla, Ninja Assassin was actually their highest grossing film. The Hills Run Red. And then they also did Orphan and Orphan First Kill. Stanley, did you see Orphan First Kill?
No.
Oh my God. Julia Stiles giving the performance of her life.
Really?
I insist. We'll watch that one together too.
Yeah.
Dark Castle. So Orphan First Kill was their most recent. Actually, Jason Blum of Blumhouse wants to work with them. He's put on Twitter twice out there that he wants to, but they just haven't found the right project. I'm not a big Blumhouse fan, but I might be curious to see what they produce together.
Oh my God. Leonardo DiCaprio produced the first Orphan.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
That's funny. I didn't realize that. I like the first Orphan. I love Orphan First Kill.
Yeah.
This is actually pretty good timing that you selected this film. So listeners, I like to give my guests a list of movies. And I learned this lesson because I gave a guest free range to pick whatever he wanted. And he wanted to do one of his own movies, and his backlog of movies that he had worked on were not films that I was excited to talk about. So
I'm right here.
I have a big long list of movies that I share with my guests, and they select. And you picked this one. It's good timing because it was just announced that Patrick Mediate and Aaron McLean they have pitched a series just earlier this month to Sony Television, and they've been given the okay to start developing it. It is not greenlit. They are developing a series based on the Black Zodiac, based on these ghosts in this movie, and each ghost would get its own episode. And just a couple of days ago, they expounded on that and said that they have an idea to move forward just after one season, a 13-episode season, to then expand the universe. And people are losing their minds. This is something that people have actually been talking about online for a very long time.
Wait a minute. The Black Zodiac. Is that the one that Jordan Peele's doing?
Here's the thing. I thought you were either going to make that joke or you were going to say, why has it got to be black? So,
oh my God. Listeners, I am. All right. just to let everybody know so they can calm down.
Listeners, I am. No, but let's get Jordan Peele on it. I would love to see him involved in this project. No, you know what? I would rather he work on something he's doing just fine working on his own projects.
I mean, each movie that he's put out, I have been in love with. So yeah. I'm not going to be one of those dissenters who are just like, well, Nope wasn't as good as us, no, I'm not that girl. Sorry.
I love
Nope. All of
this actually stuff. Rumors are still circulating about a Nope sequel, but I already did an episode on Nope. We can hopefully look forward to this series about the Black Zodiac, but Stanley, why did you select 13 Ghosts?
For starters, I haven't seen that title and I can't tell you how long. Like, for the most part, I'm a big fan of like YouTube rabbit holes of like my top 10 favorite horror movies of all time, or like the Watch Mojos, or even other horror YouTube commentators. They rarely ever talk about this movie, but I had such I don't know, an affinity for it growing up because of the DVD extras, not necessarily the movie. Because on the DVD extras, it had all these different like A&E style backstory videos of each particular ghost that I found a hell of a lot more fascinating and intriguing than Shannon Elizabeth trying to act. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I say that jokingly, like she was great in Scary Movie. There you go. Anyway,
She was,
yeah.
but she was playing a caricature of herself in that movie.
Yeah.
There's one moment she has in this where she lays down in this lavish, cozy looking bed. And
Mm-hmm.
such a cringy delivery of the line saying, "This place is awesome."
Oh no, don't
It's
get me started
so
on the ADR in this movie. Jesus.
oh,
Yeah.
the whole movie is
Yeah.
ADR. That what movie did we just watch where you had House on Sorority
Oh,
Row where
yes,
you
that I
yeah.
clocked the fact that I'm like, that's not her voice. They did all of this, like all of her talking, all of her lines in the studio. This isn't her actually doing it. And sure enough, like on Wikipedia, it said, oh yeah, the director didn't like the actual actress's voice, so they hired somebody else to like redub all of her lines.
To make her sound scarier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That movie had a great shot when that clown starts moving. You don't see it until you see it. That was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I the first time I saw this movie was my first date, actually. I would have been in about seventh grade with this young girl named Emily, and
Mm-hmm.
she and I went to see this movie. My dad picked her up, like we picked her up in his, I'm not joking, like 1980s. You picture the giant vans that had like the big stripe down the side. That's what he drove, and like the
Mm-hmm.
sliding door, and it must have reeked of cigarette smoke. I didn't realize I was the kid who went to school every day smelling like cigarettes, but I didn't know it because that's just the life that I lived in. And I remember she wore leopard print cat ears, and my dad, as we were getting out of the van, handed me a $20 bill and he said, "Don't be a cheap date," in front of her. And I could have died. And she giggled. And we had a great time. We never dated after that, but it was my
Oh,
first.
why?
I can't figure it out to this
Yeah.
day. We both did love the movie, had a
Mm.
great time. I think that it really was like a fun, it's like a fun house that you walk through, you know.
Right.
And as much as I'm going to tear this movie apart, I have an affinity for it
Mm-hmm.
because I love the original. I thought that this was a decent like a well done remake of an okay movie,
Yeah.
and it just feels like you're walking through a fun house, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, at one point it just gave me Avengers Endgame where all of them are just coming together.
Yeah,
I don't know why it made me think of that. It and also kind of gave a little bit of the Conjuring universe with that one particular movie where Annabelle comes home, where all the shit in the house just starts to going
I
haywire.
love that movie, and people tore it apart, but I thought it was fun.
Yeah,
It's
it's a lot of jump scares.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah. This movie, and also I love it because, frankly, because of the ghosts. I find them to be so interesting. And while I'm
Hmm.
excited about a TV series that would explore each of their backgrounds, I actually love that this movie, the only thing you really know about them is their visual. And
Hmm.
the way that they are designed gives you enough to get through this movie.
Right.
Right. I'm excited for a backstory, but while I was watching it as a younger, teenager, I didn't feel like I needed more. And I think that that's a testament to the design of these ghosts. So the director wanted each of these spirits to be, he called them the great white shark of ghosts. They were created by the makeup artists at KNB Effects Group,
Hmm.
and I think that they did a remarkable job. Let's start out. Let's talk about who worked on this movie, and then we'll talk about the ghosts as well. Directed by Steve Beck. He also ended up directing Ghost Ship, and that was it. He didn't direct again after Ghost Ship. This was his first. Written by Rob White, Neil Marshall Stevens, Richard O. Richard Dovidio, and
Hmm.
then Todd Alcott got an uncredited pass at it, and James Gunn, believe it or not, also uncredited. He says he only wrote 2 jokes and he would rather be judged on the movies that he actually had control over. Yep.
Damn.
Yep. Cinematography from Gail Tattersall, who also did Ghost Ship, and she did Tank Girl, which I thought was pretty cool. I fucking love Tank Girl.
Hmm.
Music by John Frizzell, and our cast is the weirdest assemblage of actors of
Yeah.
all time. Leading the charge is Tony Shalhoub, who,
Come on, Monk.
come on, Monk, come on, Miss Maisel's dad. I gotta
Yes. Oh
say,
my God. Yeah.
Tony Shalhoub, like back in the day, does it for me. Can't explain it. Don't know why. Giving me a little bit of daddy.
I'm so happy for you. Good for you. Good for you.
Wait till you see what I have to say about F. Murray Abraham. So Tony plays
Mhm.
Arthur Criticos,
Yes.
a kind of father figure in the film. Embeth Davidtz as Kalina Orezia. This is Miss Honey from Matilda. She was also in Fallen, and
She kind of reminded me of like a B-list version of Alyssa Milano. Like
sure, no,
if you look,
it's
yeah,
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 yeah. I always liked her when she pops up in something.
yeah.
Matthew Lillard from Scream and Shaggy from
Hmm.
Scooby Doo playing Dennis Rafkin, as you mentioned, Shannon Elizabeth as Kathy Criticos. Have you ever seen her first movie, Jack Frost? Not the Michael Keaton family adventure, but the horror
The
movie about a
horror.
killer snowman.
No, I didn't realize she was in that.
She's got a real saucy scene in the shower involving the snowman's
Oh, I
carrot.
heard about that shit. I didn't realize that was her.
Yeah,
Oh
before
wow.
American Pie, before Scary Movie, before this.
Yeah.
Alec Roberts plays Bobby Criticos, the young boy. This was his only movie. He went back to like he kind of just never went back to acting. Decided it wasn't for him.
Well, I mean, if you start in a horror movie as a child, I'm sure it probably freaked you out to the point of being like, I don't want to go back to this. I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah, yeah. Rod Digga as Maggie Bess, the housekeeper. So she was is a member of Flip Mode Squad, hip hop
Hmm.
group led by Buster Rhymes. She was also, I
Hmm.
didn't know this. She was in Carmen, a hip opera.
Yeah,
The Beyonce
a
one.
hip opera.
That's what I said.
You said hip opera.
Hip opera.
There we go. There you go.
That's what I said. I did not say hip opera. I'm not that white. Jesus. Anyway, she made this movie and contributed to the soundtrack. She does the song Mirror Mirror at the end, which I actually think
Hmm.
is a bit of a bop, but decided acting was not for her and to focus on her music career instead.
Hmm.
And I'm no
Good.
longer, now that I'm on YouTube, I'm no longer allowed to add music clips to my episodes. So just know that the song's a bop.
I mean, you can. I just have to edit it out later, but it's fine.
We have J.R. Bourne playing Benjamin Moss, the lawyer, the skeezy lawyer, who I think he was on Teen Wolf, the TV series, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he looks so familiar to me. I have to look him up.
He looks like an 80s Patrick Bateman type. If Patrick Bateman were Aryan, that would be this
Yeah,
guy.
and had no chin.
And
Yeah,
had no chin. F. Murray Abraham, as I mentioned, Academy Award. Did he win or nominated? I don't fucking know.
for Amadeus, and he won.
He won. So we have Oscar winner F. Murray Abraham, openly said he did this for the money.
Oh yeah. Oh God, yeah. You
And
could
then
tell.
Catherine Anderson as Jean Criticos, the dead mom.
Hmm. Yeah.
But I want to take a moment and speak about the actors and the characters of these ghosts in this movie because I think that they are what make it. Starting with, and so I'm going to just introduce the actor and the character, and then Stanley's going to talk a little bit about the history of this ghost that you don't get in the movie. We're going to start with the first ghost that gets collected, played by Michael Spidell. This is the firstborn son.
Yes. Okay. So the firstborn son, he was this child who loved cowboys, and they call it Indians, but the correct term is Native Americans. And he was playing around with his childhood friend, and his childhood friend actually pulled out a real bow and arrow from his dad's closet. And so the firstborn son was like egging him on. So he pulled out like, a fake shooter, like a Western shooter. And the friend ended up shooting the arrow and going right through the kid's head. Yeah. And technically, this particular ghost represents his name is most likely a reference to the Old West gunfighter, Billy the Kid, and he is representative of the traits of an Aries, such as being stubborn, reckless, daredevil, and possessing a sense of youthful immaturity. Well, considering he died at a very young age, yeah, he will always have that youthful immaturity.
Wait, are you an Aries?
No.
What are you again? Are you Taurus?
Yes. Wait. Yeah. Why Aries first?
No reason.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel
Mm-hmm.
Wesley plays
Mm-hmm.
the torso. Daniel Wesley plays the torso. he in reality, this actor was a double amputee, and so
Hmm.
they achieved the effect of him having no legs and no head by casting a double amputee and then putting a black hood over his head that they could remove digitally.
Yeah.
Also a little bit about the torso.
And well, here's the thing. He's actually based off of real murders called the Cleveland Torso Murders. Yeah, so there are a lot of
That sounds
mob.
grisly.
Yeah, it was a whole mafia situation where if people weren't paying off certain debts, which is exactly what happened to Jimmy, they call him Jimmy the Gambler Gambino, also known as the Torso. He had a huge gambling addiction and he placed a bet on this fight and he ended up losing the match and he had no money. So the mob ended up getting a hold of him and chopping him from like limb to limb. And this particular ghost represents the version of a Taurus, explaining his desire for material things, greed, laziness, and boundless rage.
Oh,
That does
yeah, you are a
not fully
Taurus.
represent me, you son of a bitch.
We both went in for it at the same time.
uh, yeah.
That's okay. I can't wait to see which one is the Libra.
Mm-hmm.
We have Laura Minnell playing the bound woman who, oh, you know what? We should probably talk about what these ghosts look like too. We talked about Firstborn Son, we talked about Torso. The
Yeah.
bound woman is kind of like a homecoming queen look, and then
Mm-hmm.
hanging from what looks like a noose or a tie around her neck.
Yeah. Very, I'm guessing late 80s, early 90s with
Yeah,
this
for
particular
sure.
look. Yeah. So this particular woman, she grew up really rich, really privileged. She was the head of the cheerleading team, but she was also known as like the heartbreaker. So she ends up going to prom with Chet Walters, who's like the captain of the football team, but he ends up catching her with another guy. So he ends up beating her to death and then choking her and snapping her neck with his tie. Yeah, and they ended up finding him later on, and when they were actually putting him on death row, the his final words were, "The bitch broke my heart, so I broke her neck." So her particular zodiac sign represents Gemini, with her history of cheating depicted as an example of the indecisive nature of Geminis and their reputation for being two-faced.
Damn,
Yeah.
that's
Mm-hmm.
cold.
Yeah. No, a lot of like the female ghost murders are just wrapped around misogyny. Every last one of them is
Oh,
wrapped around some sense of misogyny.
we'll get to the
Yeah.
angry princess.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Craig Olejnik, who plays the Torn Prince. I gotta say, I think he's hot. There, I said it. I thought he was hot when I was on a date with a young girl, and I was a young boy, and I think he's hot now. I think
Ew.
whatever. He is seen at one point with his car. He's very 1950s in kind of a
Hmm.
Letterman jacket, and he has a baseball bat as his weapon.
Yes. Okay.
The
Well,
side of his face has tire treads and is torn, hence
yeah.
the torn prince.
Yeah. This gifted high school baseball player had a bad case of like narcissism and superiority complex. And
That's
there
exactly
was,
my type.
oh my God. And there was this greaser who challenged him for, like a speed race. But he didn't realize that the greaser had cut his brakes before they actually started racing. So when, they were like driving down, all was good. And then right when, Johnny was supposed to like hit the brakes, his car wouldn't stop. So his car ended up driving right over a cliff. Yeah. And he represents the inverse of Leo, making him self-centered, egotistical, possessive, and impatient.
Got it. Yeah, I know some Leos just like that.
Mm-hmm.
We have next Shauna Lawyer, who played the Angry Princess. Now, the Angry Princess appears in full nude with deep, she's very, very stark white, like pale, and with slashes, like deep cuts all over her body. She's beautiful in the face with wet hair, kind of reddish hair, and then these dark, like giant black pupils, like almost blackout eyes.
Yeah.
And you know what I did notice for the first time during this? She appears nude. Her breasts are rather large
Yep.
and ample and very apparent, but in her pubic area, where her pubic hair would be, there is
Mm-hmm.
a
Say
vertical
pubic again. Yeah.
pubic. There's a vertical slash in her pubic area, which I didn't notice before. It's only in frame for
Oh,
like half a second. but it's there. She also has a slash across one of her areolas, which is really hard to look at. Fun fact, she has gained a cult following, and she at the time it was
Where in West
rumored
Hollywood?
it was no by men, and at the time she was rumored to have been played by adult film star Aria Giovanni, but she wasn't. However, there is an erotic parody of this, a porn parody of this movie called 13 Erotic Ghosts, and Aria Giovanna did play her in that. She also had the longest makeup time
Yeah.
of over 5 hours.
Yeah. Well, because it's like the whole body and
Her
she's
whole nude
completely
body.
naked.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Tell us about the Angry Princess.
this one's just it's sad. It's very sad. Apparently her name was Dana and she likely suffered from body dysmorphia. And what I mean likely, she suffered from body dysmorphia. And she ended up becoming an assistant for a plastic surgeon. And to aid her low self-esteem, unfortunately fueled by a slew of abusive boyfriends, the surgeon, instead of giving her money, decided to pay her back in the form of like breast implants, nose jobs, and like a whole litany of other different like plastic surgeries. Well, there was one time she was looking at herself in the mirror and she thought, you know what, I don't, there's something that's a little off, there's something that's a little imperfect, let me do it myself. And she ended up accidentally blinding herself in the eye with the scalpel, to the point where her self-esteem just started getting lower and lower and lower, and she ends up killing herself in the bathtub. And her sign would be the Angry Princess represents Virgo, known for being overly critical, insecure, overthinkers, and a perfectionist to a fault. Hers is just sad. It's just really fucking sad.
Yeah.
Because a lot of this was just, I imagine it was a lot of men just negging her the whole time. You know what negging is?
Why don't you tell us?
It's basically whenever um someone gives you an insult to like lower your self-esteem, so then after that you could be like, oh, okay, well, why doesn't he find me attractive, and like, hey, what's wrong with me, da, 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 da. And then all of a sudden that's when you like start a conversation, and then that person has control over you, like in your imagery, in your mind.
Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah.
happened to me.
Yeah. Oh no, anytime a guy tries that shit with me, I'm like, okay, bye.
Yeah.
Like
She
I can do worse to myself, thank you.
Yeah. When she appears on screen, there is kind of female sounds and what sounds like blurred up words happening in the audio. It's actually distorted versions of the actress saying, I'm
Mm-hmm.
sorry, over and over and over again. And there's a point where we see her in the bathroom as
Yeah.
a ghost, and in blood written across the floor are the words, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because it's just, oh God, all of that was internalized, all of it.
Yeah.
And well, actually, and externalized too, because it was a lot of men that were just being abusive to her and probably cheated on her left, right, and center, which made her self-esteem get even lower. Like, it's
Yeah.
just sad. It's sad.
She is a really cool looking and I'll say beautiful design. And not
Mm-hmm.
just because she's a beautiful woman, but just the placement of the gashes across her body, the stark contrast between her like pale white skin to the uh,
Right.
red blood in the gashes.
The only thing that the way that it's been gashed, I'm like, okay, that's how.
No, it doesn't. Right. It's not what it looks like. I think there's a little bit of waterlog to her body, to her design as well, just a touch, which I think adds to the paleness and perhaps
That I get.
the
Yeah.
cleanness, like the blood isn't dripping. The blood is in those gashes, right?
Right. But I'm like, it would make more sense for me if it was just like the wrists versus just like, how's she get on the neck and then underneath the boob and then the da, 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 and like,
You said she's blinded herself, so maybe she just couldn't find her wrists.
oh, there is a
Our
special
next
place in
ghost,
hell.
our next ghost is portrayed by Xantha Radley. She plays the Pilgrimess. This ghost
Mm,
wears a black kind of colonial style dress, and she appears in stockades. So her wrists and her hands and her head are stuck in a wooden blockade, like a
yeah.
stock, basically. She's got long, kind of straggly hair and a
Mm-hmm.
very almost like a witch like face, right? If you
Mm-hmm.
picture kind of Hollywood's classic depiction of what a scary witch looks like.
Yeah.
Tell us all about the Pilgrimess.
So yeah, this is another one that's actually based off of like real life history, especially if you think of like the Salem witch trials and many other cities at that time that were doing crazy shit like this. So she was an immigrant that came to a small New England town in hopes to, starting a better life, but For some reason, the town didn't really care for outsiders, and shortly after her arrival, a mysterious illness struck the town's livestock, and they all died. So there was a preacher there who was like, okay, what's the weird denominator here? What was new that caused this? So they ended up blaming her. So they ended up putting her in a barn, setting it on fire, but then she walks out unscathed. And then all of a sudden, that same preacher, he falls sick. And the town is horrified, thinking that, oh, yeah, this woman's definitely a witch. She's clearly a witch. So they end up putting her in a stockade where she stayed there until she died of starvation. But people were like throwing rocks at her. Kids were spitting on her. Like, yeah, the whole 9 yards. So in the twisted inverse of a Libra, the pilgrimess is unreliable, impatient, emotionally detached, and vindictive. I'm getting all this from slashfilms.com, by the way. There we go.
See, I don't personally see those qualities in myself. I relate more to the pilgrimess as just the victim everywhere I go. The world is really trying to pick on me. And while I
What's
may,
the next ghost? What's the next ghost?
do you hear what I mean, listeners?
What's following up? What's happening now?
Wow, on my own damn show. Next up, we have C. Ernst Harth playing the Great Child. Now, this ghost is a obese gentleman appearing in nothing but a diaper and a bib. He is covered from kind of like his mouth area down onto his chest with mushy food. This actor also played a similar looking character in the movie Trick or Treat. It's during the Halloween party around the bonfire. One of the people that's just hanging out at the party is sitting in the background, and he's an oversized giant adult baby. He did, if I don't, I think I read recently that he died within the last year, unfortunately. But he did play kind of the same similar looking character in two different movies.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's funny with him.
And should I actually introduce the other character as well? I will as well because
Yeah,
they're together.
it's a 2-for-1.
Yeah, Laurie Soper plays the dire mother, and she is the exact opposite of him. She is about a 3 foot tall woman with dwarfism. And she's oftentimes seen spoon feeding him mushy baby food.
Yeah. So, okay, this is another, I mean, most of them are going to be tragic stories, but this particular one starts off with her name is Margaret Shelburne. She was a little person who was working at a sideshow, like a carnival sideshow. And then she ended up being sexually assaulted by the tall man of the sideshow. And she ended up birthing this child that she kept on spoiling him. So she kept on feeding him and feeding him and feeding him until he was literally adult, but still keeping him in diapers the whole time. So you have this massive man baby, if you will. And everybody in the carnival was, making fun of them, even though, I mean, which is kind of okay. Pause that for 2 seconds. This is supposed to be like a freak show carnival, and they were making fun of them. The other freaks were making fun of them. Whatever, hypocritical. Anywho, so the rest of the freaks decided to hide the mother from the baby, and the baby literally was, freaking out, went on like a killing spree, killing basically everybody in the carnival. And by the time they found like where they hid the mother, the little person, she ended up suffocating to death. So he ended up going completely batshit crazy until he was like taken down by police. Yeah. And so it's called The Great Child represents Scorpio, making him insensitive, possessive, aggressive, and vengeful, while the dire mother, the little person, the mom, represents Sagittarius, seen as optimistic individuals, almost to the point that it hinders their perception of reality, like a growing sun needing to be seen as something other than a baby.
I will 1000% support that read of Scorpios, and I'm not going to apologize for it. That's my statement.
Yeah.
Herbert Duncan. Go ahead.
Oh, no. It's just going back to it. I'm thinking like there's only about, I would say, 50% of these ghosts are actually kind of dangerous. Like, I mean, with the angry princess, yeah, she would stab you and all that, and the torn prince would definitely knock you the fuck out. But like the pilgrimess, what's she gonna do? What's the child gonna do? You know what I mean? Like the actual little child who got shot in the head.
We don't really get to see them hurt somebody, so who's to say?
Or the torso.
Or the torso.
Literally,
I mean,
I
He's
would
still
treat it
got
like a soccer
hands.
ball.
Oh my God, Stanley, what a thing to say.
What? He's dead.
Next ghost. Herbert Duncanson portrays the Hammer. The Hammer is a super tall, like muscly giant, like like beast of a man covered in railroad like spikes, driven through his. Why are you giving me that look?
No, no, I'm listening to you gush over this the Hammer. Go on, I'm listening. Yes.
Gosh, what do you mean?
No, the way that you described him. He's just tall and just this hunk of a man who's just
This is
glistening.
not
It's
what I
just
said. That is not what I said.
I'm
Come
reading
on.
between the lines.
Yeah, all right. Read between these lines. I just held up 3 fingers, guys. So he has railroad spikes driven through his skin, and he carries a giant like iron hammer. Go on. He's also
Yeah.
the only ghost of color that we have.
Yeah, he's a black ghost. And this was, I'm guessing, because I don't know if they necessarily mention it in the
1890.
1890.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Jim Crow. Just,
Yeah.
you can stem this up to racism, folks. Literally, he was a black man who was the only black family in town as a blacksmith. And there was a white guy who wasn't happy that a black man was living there. And he told the family to leave, and the blacksmith, the Hammer, decided, no, I'm going to stay here. I didn't do anything wrong. Da, 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 da. So this white man decides to get a gang of other white people to hang his children and his wife. And then the Hammer goes on a killing spree, killing a whole bunch of these people. And you know what? I don't blame him. But then the town ended up getting a hold of this man and nailing him with a whole bunch of railroad spikes. So basically, you can stem his murder up to racism. All right, America.
Lynched him. It's fucked.
Yeah. The Hammer is one of the more malicious spirits cause. Okay. As the 10th member of the Black Zodiac, he also represents the stubborn, unforgiving, impulsive, and brutal traits found in Capricorn. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, no, they didn't lynch him. They lynched his family.
Lynched his family.
Yeah. That's the reason why he's got so many spikes in him, because they literally were killing him with railroad spikes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that lines up with Capricorn based on my recent experience chasing a man. Bastard. I'm going to cut that part.
Say their names.
I won't, because he knows who he is. He doesn't listen to my show. One of the reasons we didn't work out.
When we get to Sagittarius, you'll know.
Uh-oh.
That's for me.
Yeah. Wait, didn't we just talk about Sag? We did.
No, not yet. No, we didn't get to it yet.
All right. Next up, we have, I think, most people's favorite of the ghosts. Definitely mine. This ghost has become kind of an icon among the 13, who is just a fucking cool makeup design. And if I'm perfectly honest, I'm heavily considered dressing as this ghost for Halloween this year. I need to start now because it's going to be a tough one. Sean Weiler portrayed the Jackal. The Jackal has a scary, ghostly, distorted face inside one of those old-timey metal. They were used in insane asylums to prevent biting, like a metal cage on his head. Yeah. And the cage is kind of torn open where the face is, wearing an old-timey, really spooky straitjacket with leather straps kind of dangling from it.
It's giving streamlined Saw trap.
Oh, yeah. Like if Saw were like in like the 1800s, for sure. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. And kink and fetish and bound and
nasty.
I love it.
This one, yeah. Okay. So he was born to a sex worker sometime in 1887. His name was Ryan Kuhn, and he was a raging misogynist, apparently, with demented and insatiable lust for women. So basically, he was a serial rapist, who then decided that he needed to take care of his rape tendencies, and he ended up like admitting himself to an insane asylum. But after years of being in an insane asylum and being sequestered and what do you call it whenever you're put into like the solitary confinement, he started going crazy and he started clawing at himself. And that's when the straitjacket came into play. And then that's where they put the metal cage around his head. So like he ended up losing more and more grip of reality. And So it got to the point where yeah, he stayed in that cage until he literally died. Yeah. That's it. That's it basically. He is said to represent Aquarius extremism, rebellion, and lack of empathy, but it feels cruel to associate any sign with someone as viciously evil as the Jackal. Yeah, he was a rapist. Yeah,
Well, now knowing that, I don't really want to dress as him for Halloween.
yeah. They literally kept him isolated in darkness in the basement of an asylum, and that's how he died.
All right. Well, my second choice for Halloween was to be a mummy.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll just be a mummy this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We have as our final ghost to talk about, because I don't want to give away. Actually, they give away the 12th and 13th ghosts pretty early in this movie, so we'll go on. John DeSantis plays the Juggernaut, who is a 7 foot tall, kind of facially deformed. What is the disease where kind of your bones are too big for your structure?
Oh,
Reminds me a little
yeah.
bit of that in the face sculpt. Anyway,
Yeah.
he's just a menacing looking 7 foot tall maniac. Tell us all about the Juggernaut. Wait, before we do that, one of my AIM screen names was Juggernauty when I was a teenager because of this movie. And I used to chat with someone called the Torn Prince. Go on.
Oh my God, there was someone on Scruff called Juggernutty. Anyway, so this particular ghost was abandoned by his mother and raised only by his father, and he grew up in a junkyard. So his father gave him a job as a junkyard chopping and chopping and crushing up old cars. And Horace was basically alone for most of his teen years. And after his father died, Horace went insane because just by himself the whole time, which led him into becoming a serial killer. So anytime someone would get near the junkyard, he would end up killing them. So it wasn't until there was an undercover officer and the SWAT team arrived to take him out, and Horace managed to strongman his way out of handcuffs and kill 3 police officers before he was gunned down. That's why you see all those different like bullet holes where they actually looks more like shotgun bullet holes versus just like a small regular size gun. But yeah, with his body count rising to over 40 before his capture. And this particular this particular ghost represents a Pisces. The Juggernaut avoids taking responsibility, is aggressive, a loner, and extremely sensitive. Yeah.
Well, damn.
Oh, I guess I did mention Sagittarius. Which one was Sagittarius again?
I think it was the Dire Mother.
Oh, yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah. Nope. Dire Mother, Sagittarius, seen as optimistic individuals almost to the point that it hinders perception of reality. Yeah, that's my ex. Gotta love compartmentalization. Anywho, go on.
I love how the Zodiac doesn't apply to us, but it does apply to the men who have wronged us.
That part. Louder for the listeners in the back.
It's literally the only reason that I don't believe in the Zodiac. Let me start with that. But I will always make an exception to explain how a man has done me wrong. Oh, he was a Sagittarius. Oh, he was a Capricorn. That's why. Oh, Scorpio. Pfft, what a dick.
Yeah.
We also have as our 12th ghost.
Yes.
Kind of a throwaway twist that is very obvious, and then the twist is revealed pretty early in the movie.
Yeah.
In my opinion, Catherine Anderson as Jean Criticos, the mom and wife of the family in the film. And she appears, she has died in a fire trying to save her children, but she didn't make it. She appears kind of half of her face is unburned, and then the rest of it is severely burned, like Freddy Krueger burned. And it's the makeup is laid out in a way where you can still see the kindness and beauty in her face. And then she appears in a hospital gown with an IV that has like a blood drip and an IV drip attached to her. Tell us a little bit about her. She is the Withered Lover.
I don't know why, but looking at her picture, it's given me Two-Faced with a Karen haircut.
Yeah.
It just, yeah. And it just like cut and then to the side.
She always wants to talk to the manager.
Well, you said everything that this character has. I mean, The only thing that I can add to it is the withered lover is the traditional zodiac equivalent to Cancer. So it's represented by her motherly, intuitive, compassionate, sensitive, and emotional nature. Yeah.
Got it. And she is among the ghosts the only one
Mm-hmm.
who is not evil and not trying to hurt them. In fact, she's
Well,
actively trying to help them.
yeah, yeah, okay. Because I'm like the boy, like the one who got shot in the forehead. What the hell is he gonna do?
He's got a mischievous look on his. I mean, he's a ghost.
Yeah.
He's got an arrow in his head sticking out the back. He can like turn his back to people and then just like bang his head against them and it'll stab them with an arrow. I don't fucking know. He's from the 50s, so he's probably a boomer by now. So he's got some opinions that he'll bore you with to death, bore you to death with.
I'm gonna let you sit in that. I just want you to marinate in what you just said. Okay.
Mhm. All right,
But
so
yeah.
that is our.
Oh, also, they have all of like these different mini episodes on the backstory that they had on the DVD years ago, and that's the reason why I knew anything about this because I loved it. It's all up on YouTube. Like you can find each one. It's literally done as if it's like A&E biography.
So cool.
Mm-hmm.
So cool. And again, the most interesting part of this movie. But that doesn't mean you should stop listening because now I just want to spout a few facts. This house is remarkable, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was a practical set. They used over 3 miles of etched glass in this film, and it
Mm-hmm.
all had to be laid out individually. They didn't actually etch the glass. It's actually a plastic like overlay that they put on this glass. And the etchings are spells and incantations in Latin in kind of like if papyrus font were in cursive. That's what this would look like. Actually, I found out one of the panes of glass has the Lord's Prayer in Latin in it. And they use almost 5 tons of steel because this house is essentially a giant puzzle box that's able to
Mm-hmm.
move and change and shut itself in. They did have some problems in production because this glass was reflecting the crew and because it's a house made of glass. So, how do they combat that? They use bright lights above and below. The floor tiles are light up tiles, kind of like in those 80s bathrooms, those light up blocks of tile that are kind of ripply looking. And
Mm-hmm.
so by adding light above and below it, it reduced the reflection glare on this glass. And then they just darkened it in print. And then they just darkened it in post. And I have to say, it's a really cool set piece. It's unlike other horror movies. I think the use of so much light and yet maintaining a darkness is atmospheric and cool.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it does not allow for a lot of kind of dark corners or think places for things to hide. And I think that's where the over the top editing of these ghosts appearing comes in.
Well, I mean, they had a hard time filming because everything is see-through. So everybody on set had to be wearing all black. And literally, it's in one of the behind the scenes videos. And they were talking about how, like, okay, nobody in the crew can move while we film this scene because we might catch a reflection in like one of the glasses or one of the mirrors or whatnot. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And I wonder if there are any. I wonder if you can go back and see. I mean, they might just look like another ghost.
Right. Oh, like to catch different like details or something like that. Like, oop, there's a boom in the shot. You can see it reflect in that side window over there.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of like there's been like these YouTube shorts that have been popping up on my on actually on the Rick or Treat pod on the Rick or Treat YouTube page of Scream of like, oh, you can tell when it's actually Stu Macher fighting with Sydney versus when it's the stunt double. And they actually do a slowdown being like, oh, that's not Matthew Lillard's hair. Who's
I
that?
love that. That's funny. I
Yeah.
love seeing shit like that. All right,
Mm-hmm.
why don't we get into the plot of this movie?
Ah!
What plot?
Yeah.
So the film opens in a junkyard and we get our title card 13 ghosts in a really really 2001 looking overlay and font where kind of spooky orange light flashes through it and then we get a massive truck kind of like the trucks that carry gasoline smashing through
Mm-hmm.
the gates and sparks fly for no fucking reason unless it was an electric fence. Is that it? I just thought of that. I don't know.
No, if nobody's going, but that's
You
the
don't have an
thing. If
electric fence outside of a junkyard, right?
yeah, especially if it's been closed down and condemned and everything else, why is there electricity running?
Couldn't tell you. This giant truck moves in and followed by several cars. It's essentially it looks like a SWAT team coming into this
Mm-hmm.
junkyard. And here we meet Cyrus Kritikos, played by F. Murray Abraham, and his assistant, Dennis, played by Matthew Lillard. Dennis is neurotic as fuck. This performance, I can't tell if I love it or hate it. Let me be clear. I love Matthew Lillard, and I don't
Yeah.
think he's doing anything wrong in this movie. I think that he, of anyone in it, knows what he's in. No, you know
That
what? I take it back. I think Tony Shalhoub knows what movie he's in and he still commits to it. I think Matthew Lillard knows what movie he's in and he's just trolling everybody around him.
I don't know. I feel like Tony Shalhoub wanted it to be more than
Better.
what it was,
Sure.
and you could tell from that performance because he was trying to be so earnest.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Matthew Lillard, I'm like, anytime he was on screen, I'm like, okay, now I'm interested. I'm back again. If it
Right.
wasn't one of the ghosts or him, yeah,
Yeah. He
yeah.
has a lot of neurotic tendencies. He's very skittish at all times.
Mm-hmm.
He can't handle being touched. We'll get to that in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And he does at a moment pull out a bottle of pills and then drops them and freaks out. And Cyrus says, I told you not to take those. I need your senses full for this experiment. And basically,
Academy Award winning Cyrus.
yeah, seriously. We get to a point where they reveal the trap. It turns out they're going to trap a ghost in this junkyard. And so the trap is this cage made out of glass panes with this Latin etching all over it. And the design of anything mechanical in this movie does look really cool. I'm not going to
Mm-hmm.
call it steampunk, but it's kind of gears and levers, and maybe it is
No,
steampunk.
it's steampunk. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
steampunk. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And lit up really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let me take a moment and tell you this. In that original movie from 1960, there are a pair of glasses that allow you to see the ghosts. They were really like metal glasses that lit up on the inside. And that was actually a big deal for 1960. The idea that these glasses could light up without being plugged in or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And they did a great job of incorporating that idea into this movie. They also were going to make this movie 3D and give people glasses as they came in, just like that original movie did, but they opted
Mm-hmm.
not to do it at the last minute. 3D was not quite a thing yet. It would become a thing for Hollywood again a couple of years after this, but budgetary restraints prevented them. But they did incorporate those glasses into the movie. So when they wear these glasses that light up on the inside, they're able to see the ghost.
No, it did. I will say this scene kind of reminded me of Dream Master and Dream Warriors.
Oh
Because
yeah,
when they're
the
in that, mm-hmm,
yeah, then the battle with Freddy's bones.
yeah,
Yeah, I can see that. Poor
especially that
Kincaid, poor
one
Kincaid
death.
dying poorly at the beginning of Dream Master.
Yeah.
Don't want to talk about it. So shit hits the fan at a point because Cyrus says, "Bring in the bait." And Dennis freaks out and he's like, "Bait? What? We never needed bait before." He has touched the ground and had a psychic reaction where he can sense how many dead people are there. And he's like, "There's 40 dead spirits, but you told me we're only looking for one." And it turns out they are looking for one. No,
Mm-hmm.
he is what we will learn to be the Juggernaut. And we learn that there are so many spirits there because while he only killed maybe 11 people while he was alive, he has
Mm-hmm.
killed more since then,
Yep.
since he was dead here in this
Mm-hmm.
junkyard. The bait that they're referring to is that giant gasoline truck pulls around the corner and starts hosing the junkyard down with blood. This is my question. Where did this blood come from?
I I don't know. Maybe the Red Cross decided to help him out. He probably donated a huge check to them. I have no idea. But I'm confused by the fact that why is blood the draw? Was the Juggernaut half vampire at one point? Like, why blood?
I mean, I
I
think
mean,
it's just the connection to violence and, the life force, perhaps.
I guess I think it would make more sense if it's just, I don't know, someone who's standing there by himself because he's just going to go after like,
Yeah.
solo individuals.
I'm
You
going
know
to
what I mean?
say if we break down every nonsensical aspect of
I
this
know,
movie,
I
we're going to be
know, I
here
know,
all
I
night.
know.
But it works because soon the Juggernaut appears and, of course, can only be seen through those glasses. But suddenly, members of this ghost trapping team start flying through the air or getting killed, or as you kind of alluded to, one of them is standing in front of the hood of a car and he snaps in half backwards and gets dragged into the hood of the car. It's pretty gnarly looking. blood
Mm-hmm.
flying everywhere. Two interlopers, what are they called? I don't know, are dragged out of the junk, and one of them is Kalina, and the other is her assistant, whose name escapes me because he's not going to make it much longer.
Yep.
Now we have learned that they are kind of ghost rights workers. They work to free spirits who have been trapped. This is a big
As
stretch, y'all. She screams at Cyrus, "They're human beings. You can't treat them this way." And
they're
it's
GSJW, Ghost Social Justice Warriors.
I mean, essentially, you're not wrong. Now, why she would want this killer maniacal ghost free as opposed to, I mean, does she think she's going to rehabilitate it? Does she think she's going to be able to change its ways? I don't know. And unfortunately, one member of this team finds himself inside of the cage. The Juggernaut rushes toward him, ends up in the cage. They shut the cage door, but they don't let this team member out. And he gets ripped to pieces, slammed up against the glass, and killed. Matthew Lillard has kind of a face to face with the Juggernaut, at which point, after the ghost is captured, we hear Kalina screaming, and she says, "He's not going to make it." We find that her partner is dying, and then he dies. And Cyrus also has perished. And we see him dead, laid across the top of like a car, the hood of a car, and his throat has like glass, like a sheet of like a window, what is it, a windshield kind of shoved through it, and Cyrus has died. We move into opening credits, and I actually really like this opening credits sequence because it's one long slow circle around a single room, and it starts looking out the window at two children playing. The camera starts moving, panning left slowly. We have Tony Shalhoub, Arthur, with his wife talking, being cute. He remarks, "I'm so happy." And over the span of this camera rotating around this room, it starts to decay and starts to look like it has been burned. And it's a pretty cool effect. We hear the sounds of a fire, we hear people screaming, and then we learn that the wife has not made it out of the fire. And from there, we hear kind of hospital sounds and a heart monitor, and then the heart monitor flatlines. We hear Tony Shalhoub, or Arthur, crying, and we settle in on the fact that she has not made it.
How old is Shannon Elizabeth supposed to be in this movie?
Yeah, I don't know. She's actually only like 2 years younger than Rodiga,
Yeah,
who's playing the
because
nanny.
she was 26, 27 when she shot this. Yeah.
Couldn't tell you. I don't know. So we cut to sometime later, and they are living in a small apartment for four people. So it's the family of three: dad, daughter, son, and then housekeeper slash nanny, Maggie. And they're having kind of a frustrated, busy, typical movie morning where someone's trying to make breakfast and, "Oh, you're in the way," and everyone's just in each other's way. They remark, like, the daughter is her name Catherine?
Yeah.
She's making breakfast, and they remark, "Well, we hired Maggie to do this." And, "Well, have you tasted her cooking?" "Hey, I heard that." And the dialogue in this movie is not great.
No.
At a point, Arthur trips on a skateboard or something and says, "Well, I told you, why are you leaving your things out here?" And Bobby, the little boy, is real sad. And Kathy says, "Well, if we had a bigger place, we wouldn't be stepping on toys." And Tony Shalhoub says, "Well, we just don't have the money for that." I mean, I'm not exaggerating. This is the dialogue in the movie.
I wonder if half of this was improv. You know what I mean?
It's not solid writing. Yeah,
No.
not at all.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
not in the least. We learned that Bobby has a morbid curiosity. Bobby likes dead things and dead people and talking about the macabre, which comes from the original film, because I
Right.
think the kid's name was Duke in that movie. He loves reading this book of ghost stories. And Maggie, our nanny, is encouraging it. She kind of likes to egg him on in his morbid curiosities.
Yeah. Technically, he's like the first OG podcaster, if you think about it.
Sure. Yeah, I would
Yeah.
have him on my show.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely. Definitely. We get a telegram delivered, like a special delivery. And it turns out that Arthur was the estranged nephew of Cyrus Criticos, who was just killed in the junkyard. And he has left him a house just a few hours from here. And oh my God, it belongs to you. You should go check it out. Now, Catherine, I'm going to call her Kathy. because we're buddies now.
Yeah.
She has remarked about how hard it is to share one bathroom this whole time. That's going to come in play a little bit later, but they decide, holy shit, this could change our lives. We should go see it. So they
Mm-hmm.
do. They all hole up into a car and make their way there. And when they get there, they meet the lawyer, and he's instantly recognizable as a skeezy motherfucker.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so they're walking up to this really cool house. It's made of like rusty colored steel and glass, and it's a mansion essentially, very modern looking. It was designed after the New York Science Museum. So if you look at pictures of the New York Science Museum, you'll see similarities to it.
Mm-hmm.
And at the front, all the lights are off. And at the front door, there's someone who looks like an electrician standing there shining a flashlight inside. The lawyer is instantly like, what the fuck? Come on. I don't want to deal with this. And Arthur approaches him and he says, hey, I'm here from the power company. Do you know how many, I think he says gigawatts. I think he quotes Back to the Future. This house is setting off. And he says something like 4,592 houses in the area don't have power. This guy is clearly making it up. And we as an audience know that it's Dennis, Matthew Lillard in disguise,
Mm-hmm.
trying to get into this house. The lawyer wants to have none of it, but Arthur is feeling generous and excited. And he says, sure, I'll let you in. Fix whatever electricity you have to. It's fine. I just want to get in this house. The lawyer lets them in and the lights start to come up. And we see that this house is fucking cool looking. Like I mentioned, glass with etched Latin all over the place, mechanical
Mm-hmm.
looking, doors open and close. And it's got this museum of oddities, one of which is actually McLeod's katana from the movie Highlander. Bobby actually picks it up and starts to play with it, and Arthur takes it out of his hand and says, I don't think so. But it's the sword from Highlander.
Oh wow, didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. A lot of just spooky occult stuff all over the place, and everyone's super impressed with it. They start to go and explore, and Arthur takes the lawyer aside and says, listen, I'm going to be honest, I'm not doing super well. The taxes alone on this house must be astronomical. I'm a math teacher. I don't really have anything set aside. We lost everything in the fire. And the lawyer tells him, listen, your uncle set you up, so you and your family will never have to worry about money again. And this is really kind of the biggest dream of my life, is that a family member I don't know about will have died and left me something like this, a sizable estate
Hmm.
with enough to never worry about money again. It's either that, win the lottery, or marry up. Those are my only chances to ever be able to retire.
Yeah. Don't get me started on that, but yeah.
So he decides, sure, let's run with this. We're going to move in here. So they're exploring this house. Kathy comes across this really lavish bedroom, lays down in the bed, gives us that cringy delivery of the line, this place is awesome. And she also
Mm-hmm.
comes across a bathroom. Now, she's exploring this bathroom. There's a lot of slow motion in this sequence. She like
Mm-hmm.
fills the sink up with water and splashes water.
Mm-hmm.
And so while this is happening, the lawyer has separated himself from the family, and he's kind of like making his way down into the basement, passing by sheets of glass, and behind them are these ghosts. Is he wearing the glasses at this point? He must be, right?
He's wearing them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's wearing these glasses so he can see them, and he's being a dick to these ghosts. Like, he checks out, he like wolf whistles at the angry princess and says something like, what happened, sweetheart? Bad representation. And you can see in her eyes that she's not having it with
Well,
him.
no, he says to her, nice tits.
Nice tits, is that what he says? Great.
Yep.
Even better. What a gentleman.
Mm-hmm.
He makes his way to this kind of secret office room and picks up what is a briefcase. And when he picks it up, he doesn't realize that like makes a switch go off, and things start moving around the house. Doors start opening and closing. And this massive, in the giant foyer, there is a series of circles on the floor. And when he does this, one of them, the outer ring, almost like the rings of hell, but there's like 13 of them with
Mm-hmm.
a center circle in the middle. And one of the outer rings starts moving, starts rotating. One of the cages down below, these glass panes that's keeping the ghosts in, opens. And it is the cage for the angry princess. And she is now freed.
Mm-hmm.
He makes his way back. He's got this giant briefcase of what we know now is money, Cyrus's fortune. and he's going to steal it and make out with it. He finds himself face to face with the angry princess, and he's like, holy shit, how did you get out? And she gives him a creepy look. And then from either side of where he's standing, glass panes come in and close in on him like sliding doors at the grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the coolest death, I think, in the entire movie. And it's the first one. Not the
It's
first one, but
Yeah, no, you know what kind of reminds me of Resident Evil? Wasn't there a death like that in Resident Evil in the first one? Am I making that up?
Resident Evil had the lasers that slice through somebody,
That's what it was.
but it
Yeah.
also reminds me of The Cell with Jennifer Lopez when that horse gets like vivisected by multiple panes of
Oh,
glass and then separated,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So we see he's standing still, and we don't know that he's cut in half from like kind of sideways yet. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we know it, but he doesn't, and he's looking around, and then he slowly starts to slide down the glass, but his back half stays up, and so we see his brains and we see his innards, and it's really fucking cool and really gross. And I gotta say, for 2001 and the limited amount of like visual effects when it comes to digital that they had back then, cutting this guy in half like that looks really good still.
Mm-hmm. It's also kind of funny too, because Dark Castle, you said, did Ghost Ship. That opening scene, everyone gets sliced.
Yes, and
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they kind of start to realize they're sliced in half in the exact same
Mm-hmm.
way, kind of looking around, unable to move, and then their bodies slide. Uh, yeah, that's a great point.
Mm-hmm.
So the ghosts are starting to get freed. The lawyer's dead. I love it. Later on, the nanny Maggie comes. They're looking for him, and she goes, "Did the lawyer split?" But because he's split in half. Did you
Oh,
catch
I
that?
didn't even catch that. Oh, good Lord.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
say that's
okay.
one of the jokes that I'm gonna say that's one of the jokes James Gunn contributed to this.
Oh, God.
So Dennis reveals him. He's like, "We got to get out of here. The house is starting to move." And as he says that, the front doors close completely.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way out. And
Mm-hmm.
Dennis is like, fuck. And he tells everybody the truth, right? Your uncle was a collector of weird shit, including ghosts. And he had these 12 ghosts locked up in this house. They are dangerous. We got to get out of here. Also, these special light up glasses make you be able to see them. Uh, we got to go find your kids because Kathy and Bobby have split up. Kathy is seen in the bathroom. She's like drawing a bath. And while she's doing that, we're cutting back and forth from the bathroom being bloody with blood smeared everywhere and those words, I'm sorry, sprawled on it, to being pristine
Mm-hmm.
and beautiful. And she gets super, super close to the angry princess, who is now lounging in the bathtub, a blood filled tub, but Kathy can't see any of that. And at a point, the angry princess lifts up her knife, and we think it's going to get Kathy, but then it switches away. And now we're on Bobby.
Why? Because with the other ghosts, anytime there's an attack, why did she stop?
Yeah,
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I mean, I
It's
know
a
why it is. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not a solid screenplay. Yeah,
Okay.
believe it or not. Bobby is down in the basement riding a scooter, and he comes face to face with the firstborn son.
Right.
And yeah, with the arrow through the head.
Mm-hmm.
And in a scream is dragged away around the corner, and now he is held captive by ghosts. So
And he also runs into the torso too.
he does run into the torso, which is kind of like using his arms to drag itself a little bit toward him. It's a very bizarre shot. Shot in such a way that it feels like frames are missing, and that's what we get from these ghosts. The cinematographer was using a special kind of film, and she would like flicker the camera on and off and on and off, and so that's why we get this kind of skippy motion from them.
Right. I also think it's kind of funny that he got all the ghosts that would be
The least
non-threatening.
dangerous, yeah.
Yeah, because he had the torso, he had the girl who like had her neck snapped and broken,
the
the
bound woman,
cheerleader, the
the bound
bound woman,
woman.
yeah, the bound woman. And you also had the kid. So it's just like, what are they gonna do?
Yeah, scare him, which they
Yeah.
do. Arthur and Maggie and Dennis hear the scream, and they're like, wait, we got to find the kids. So they go looking. Arthur goes off on his own. Dennis and Maggie go together. And
Right.
Maggie remarks, I'm in a house with a bunch of crazy white people. I should have quit this job a long time ago. She is used, unfortunately, in the very stereotypical way of the sassy black sidekick throughout this entire movie.
Oh yeah, she was improvising a lot of those lines. I can already tell you that.
Sure.
Literally. I'm sure they're like, give us something, give us some
Give
attitude, give
us,
us some da
yeah.
da da da. Yeah.
I have heard so many nightmares of my black friends going into auditions and being like, yeah, could you just be a little more, I don't know.
Urban. The word that you're looking for is urban. They
Sure.
want you to be more urban because that's happened to me.
Well,
Actually, I've gotten that one. And can you gay it up more?
gay it up more. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
like, these wrists can't get any more bent. I don't know what you want from me.
I get, can you gay it up less? Because if I don't open my mouth, I look pretty butch.
Right.
But as
Then a
soon as I,
pocketbook falls out. Yeah.
yeah, then my purse falls out and it's followed by a giant dick. Bobby, before he gets dragged away, he sees his mother, the withered lover, and she's trying to get him to leave the basement, right? He was lured down there by these ghosts. His mother is like, get out of there, but then he's dragged away.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Next paragraph. Dennis uses a pair of spectral glasses that allow the wearer to see the supernatural realm to avoid the ghosts. The jackal, one of the most dangerous ghosts, attacks Kathy and Arthur, but they are saved by Kalina or Oretzia, a spirit liberator who is attempting to free the ghosts. Kathy disappears. The
Ghost
four adults.
social justice warrior. Ghost
Yep.
social justice warrior.
Let's just do that much so far. All right.
Yeah.
So Dennis runs into Kathy and he's like, we got to get out of here. And she's like, no, but we each got our own bathroom. Come on, I like it here. And right when she says that, she gets dragged down a hallway. The jackal, the scary one with the cage over its face, is dragging her down a hallway, and she gets lifted up and pinned up against the wall. And so we're cutting back and forth between being able to see the ghost and not being able to, while it's clawing at her. And then it claws her blouse or her hoodie so much that her giant jiggly titties are just a close up to the camera under a bra. So it's
Mm-hmm.
broad, but still gratuitously, like ridiculously. I think even in 2003, this was a ridiculous thing to include in this sequence.
Oh yeah, but also it's like, oh, we're going to capitalize off of Shannon and Elizabeth showing off her tits again.
Yeah,
That's
well,
all it was.
this is the height of her acting ability. Also, one of the struggling sounds that makes is it's real bad. So she's getting these scratches appearing all over her body. And let me just this seizure inducing flashes of white light when you can see the ghost and when you can't see the ghost, mixed with this noise, is what viewers find so frustrating because it happens throughout the entire
Oh, the whole
fucking
movie.
movie.
Yeah.
If there
Yeah.
were a cut of this movie that removed that, I think it would be a better movie.
Well, it'd be 30 minutes long.
Roger Ebert remarked that this was to distract people from the lack of the lack of interesting plot that's going on. So,
Well, she's being attacked by the rapist. That's all
yes.
it is.
Yeah, which is, now knowing that he's a rapist is really interesting to me because there's I guess I didn't know that that was the background of the character, and now the
Mm-hmm.
clawing of the breasts makes more sense.
Because he would do that with the nurses too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, now Arthur doesn't know what to do. He's trying to grab her out of midair. He can't see this ghost. And then from around the corner, we get Kalina, the spirit liberator, or what did you call her?
I ghost social justice warrior.
Great. Ghost social. You know her Facebook page is really fucking annoying.
Oh my God.
So she lights a flare. When we first met her, there's a throwaway line by Cyrus that says, you still using those Quicksilver flares? And so we see that these special flares that she used deter the ghost. She throws it at the jackal. Kathy falls to the ground, and
I just thought it was funny with Shannon and Elizabeth specifically, when they're pulling her, I'm like, you guys could be a lot faster if you don't pull her. Like if all three of you were running, I've watched that earlier this morning. I'm just like, this would slow them down.
that's
Why
right.
aren't they?
They grab her by the ankles and drag her away. And while they're doing that, the jackal is chasing after her, and then two sheets of glass close in front of it, and now it's trapped. She's
Mm-hmm.
crying, and Arthur looks at Kalina and says, who the hell are you? And what the hell was that? And we get a little bit of background. Kalina introduces herself as a spirit liberator, and there are 12 ghosts trapped in this house, but there should be 13. And Arthur says a 13. It's just, Kalina tells Kathy, take off those glasses and give them to your dad. He puts them on, and now he sees the jackal, and now he can't deny what's going on. He can't, Dennis had said ghosts, and now he has to believe it. And Kalina says, we need to stick together. Come on, let's go. All right. So after that, this happens in like a cut scene, like a cutaway. Kathy just disappears. No one knows where she goes. No one sees her get up and walk away or anything. And so Arthur's
Which
like,
makes no
no
sense.
sense.
How?
I don't fucking know.
Because she's the one who's pulling everybody.
Kathy is gone. So now the four adults gather in the library. So now we've got Kalina, who has to introduce herself again. And then will be the third time that we've heard Kalina tell who she is. We get Dennis and Maggie and Arthur all in the library. And Kalina starts to tell the story about how the house is a machine and it's powered by these captive ghosts. And the machine at its fullest power allows its user to see the past, the present, and the future. But the only way to shut it down is from a sacrifice of love. And somehow this resonates with Arthur, who then realizes he is that 13th ghost, the sacrifice that can shut this machine down.
Mm-hmm.
And that he has to do it in order to save his children. All right, so the adults decide we're going to go back downstairs. Kalina and Maggie stay together while Dennis and Arthur stay together. And they're walking, and Dennis has seen the hammer through the glass. And when he gets touched or touches something, that's when he gets like a vision of, like a psychic vision of a ghost that's around. And so when he sees the hammer, he sees a vision of himself getting killed by it. And so he now knows it's coming for him at some point. Well, boy, howdy, does it ever. Because he and Arthur are getting chased by it. And they have taken a pane of glass off of the wall to use as a shield. And I just can't imagine that they could lift this very easily or very easily take it off of the wall. Like if this piece of glass came off so easily, why couldn't you remove another one in order to get out of the building?
What did you say the reasoning was when I asked a very logical question?
That we can't keep doing this to ourselves or our listeners.
There we go. Yeah. It's a bad script.
All right. So in order to save Arthur, Dennis realizes he has to sacrifice himself. So he shoves Arthur into a corner, and then he puts that pane of glass like in front of him. So now Dennis is like protected by this glass in a corner, and Dennis says, you know what, come and get me. And the hammer does, and lifts him up over his head, and then breaks his back against another like corner of a wall, and he is killed.
I will say this, going back to the hammer, when they were watching him, when it was Rod Digga and Matthew Lillard's character, when Matthew Lillard was explaining all the different ghosts and stuff like that, how the hammer went after Matthew Lillard, but when Rod Digga could actually see the hammer wasn't as aggressive. Like it was just, he was actually kind of passive.
Yeah.
So I wonder, number one, if it was the black actor who was playing the hammer being like, I'm not going to go after another black character, because my backstory was I was being killed by a racist white mob. So I'm not going to harm my people. But with Matthew Lillard, I wonder if his backstory was just like, I wonder if this looks like the person who had my family hanged or was trying to kill me.
Oh, it certainly could be.
Yeah,
it certainly could be. It doesn't escape me that the first and only ghost that Maggie really has an encounter with is the Black Ghost, which is certainly, on purpose. But no, you're absolutely right about that.
No. It's just funny. I'm trying to ground this movie in someone.
Right. No, for sure. Well, because there is that moment where they look each other deep in the eyes, right? Like they share eye contact, Maggie and the hammer.
Well, that was Busta Rhymes. So.
Oh, come on.
Woo-ha. Anywho, go ahead.
All right. So Dennis has died. Arthur is trying to find his kids. We cut to Kalina and Maggie searching through the house, and Maggie's looking through a glass pane or something, and out of nowhere Kalina grabs a giant book that's like a book of magic that she's been using to explain this Black Zodiac to everybody, and she whacks Maggie with it. Maggie's unconscious, and then from around a corner Cyrus Critico steps, and he's got blood around his neck like he had been killed, but it turns out he hadn't. He faked his death. And how he had a special effects makeup team in that junkyard on the ready to apply that appliance to him to make him appear dead, and then how he was able to convince the coroner office that he's dead so that they could send this last will and testament to then lure Arthur to this house is completely beyond me.
Academy Award winner, Best Actor.
F. Murray Abraham.
That's the reason why he had blood on his neck the whole time.
Okay.
That's why he had a whole team, because
committed. Yeah. All right.
He was committed the whole time, considering what was the time span from him being killed in that junkyard to the family actually going to the house. He was wearing that same prosthesis for what, 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Listen, we get another big twist when Kalina puts her arms around him and starts kissing him. And we realize now that she is his partner and his lover. And I don't understand why she ever had to pose as a, say it again, ghost social justice warrior.
There we go. GSJW.
When she could have just been working with him the whole time without this giant facade. But he does not stay loyal to her very long, as it turns out. He got what he needed. Arthur is here. And Arthur is the reason that he lured him here so that he would have the 13th ghost. So we learned that he has lied to her. She does not take it well. He has lied in telling her that the sacrifice of the ultimate love sacrifice would stop the machine. But as it turns out, that's actually the final thing it needs to get power. And so he has orchestrated Kathy and Bobby being abducted in order to get Arthur to sacrifice himself. That will be the final thing to activate the machine. Kalina does not like the idea of putting the kids in danger. And so he is like, fuck off, I'm done with you. Pushes her down, starts walking away. She follows him. A pane of glass quickly closes in on her, pinning her to another pane of glass, and she gets squished. And it's a pretty decent CGI effect, I think, of her face kind of like stretching and then like skull cracking.
And then you see the blood.
Yeah. It works. It does work. And that's the end of Kalina. I don't know why we needed her in this movie.
I don't know why either. And considering all the crazy, horrible shit this man has done, she drew the line at children?
Yeah. I will say this. The Margaret Hamilton, the Wicked Witch of the West character in the original gets split into 3 characters in this. Dennis the psychic, Maggie the housekeeper, and then Kalina the assistant, because Margaret Hamilton was all 3 of those: psychic, housekeeper, assistant in the original movie. But I still don't feel like we needed her. So now we're in the main hall where that's the rings, kind of looking like the rings of hell, have been spinning every time a ghost is released. And in the center of all of these spinning, rotating rings, Bobby and Kathy are tied up. And now it kind of looks like, have you ever been on one of those rides? It's like a series of rings and you're kind of like strapped in the middle and you rotate and each of the rings is rotating. So you're moving like almost like you're spinning through outer space.
Jesus.
That's what it looks like around them, except it's metal blades. They have to get these kids out, right? So while Arthur's trying to figure out a way, Maggie, the housekeeper, is now trying to mess with the controls of the house as a machine. And man, when she starts pushing buttons and turning knobs, we get DJ vinyl scratching sounds. Which makes no sense. Now, this Latin incantation has been playing on a tape, but like a tape doesn't make those noises. And all that I can say is it's happening because she's Black and part of a hip hop group in real life. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that's the only reason why. It's raw digga. Real talk. It's raw digga. That's it. Like, it's
like a remix.
Ooh, why? But yeah, it's raw digga. That's the only reason why they're doing that. And I'm sure there was some white executive being like, hey guys, let's do this for her people. You know what I mean? Like, it feels like one of those kind of moments where I'm like, sir, this is why are we doing this?
Yeah. Well, while this is happening, all of the 12 ghosts have assembled around this machine. They're each standing on the symbol of their Black Zodiac, like where they belong in it. And so they are spinning around. What is that face for?
Black Zodiac after we just talked about Rod Digger, but go on, I'm listening. So there's Snoop, there's Busta, there's
Why do you
Fat
do this to me
Joe.
all the time? Why do you do this to me all the fucking time?
Lil Kim's on the side. And this is 2001, so Nelly was popular at that point.
Thanks
You
for
got
coming,
Miss.
Rick or treating, everybody. It's been a great episode. I've been canceled by my social media manager. Fucking A.
It's 2001. This is when I was really listening to hip hop at that point. But yeah. Oh
As
my, yeah.
as Maggie is disrupting these all of the noises with her remix. Shut up. The machine's going haywire. The ghosts
Remix.
pick up Cyrus and they hurl him into these spinning, rotating blades, and he is eviscerated into hundreds of bloody, disgusting, terrible pieces. Now, Arthur still has to save his child. It's actually, let me take a moment and talk about when the ghost picks Cyrus up, because he is knocked flat on the ground and they center around him, and it's a upward camera looking and them looking down at him, and it's a recreation of the very famous shot from the 1933 classic Freaks. Really cool shot of all of the freaks. One of us, that cool shot. They pick him up over their heads and then toss him into the machine, rips them apart. But the kids are still trapped in the middle of it. Arthur, as a math teacher, starts studying the pattern in which these ring blades are rotating and spinning, and finds that there is a split-second moment where he could jump through and save them. Now, why he want? I mean, I guess if he gets to the middle of it and gets to them, he thinks that he can then get them out. I don't fucking know. He does make this leap and makes it to the middle of this giant rotating death machine. Right when Maggie is able to stop the machine altogether, the thing explodes. The ghosts kind of disappear from the room, and everyone is safe. They're surrounded with the destruction of this weird, spinning, scary, rotating blade machine. Arthur hugs his kids. The walls of the house start shattering, and Jean, the mom, tells them she loves them before she disappears. We get an outside pan from the house and we see the ghost kind of, the jackal is like skipping maniacally and does a little spin in the air, and they all disappear, presumably set free.
Which is kind of scary if you think about it.
Oh yeah, all of these, but they disappear not in the north, they kind of fade away. And so it's like, have they been set free, like released to the next plane, or are they just free to run wild? I guess the upcoming TV series might tell us that.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I'm just like, they were all in their own habitats at one point. So I'm like, I guess on their way to, they might be going back to that. I don't know. It just, you had dangerous ass ghosts that were killing live people, but now they're being set out into the world again.
Yeah. Well, as our family emerges from the
Who
house,
wrote this? Yeah, sorry.
as our family emerges from the house, the film fades to black, but then it comes back because Maggie, we forgot all about Maggie. She is pulling herself from the rubble, walking through the house, and she, in an exclamation of frustration, says, I am done with this, people. I am done with this house. I quit. End of movie. Her song Mirror Mirror starts playing. Credits roll. That is 13 Ghosts.
Okay, I haven't watched this movie, I mean, earlier this morning, but the first time and only other time I've watched this, I think I might have been 13, 14. And I thought it was like, okay, this is fine. This is interesting. Watching it now as an adult, I'm like, why? Why did I like it? Jesus Christ. Because there's so many things now where I'm just like, oh, this is the reason why this flopped.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Listen, here's my thing, and let's just get into it. On Rick or Treat Horrorcast, there's a rating system. A movie is either a trick, which means it's all right. It's a treat, which means you loved it, or it's a smell my feet, which means it sucked. Stanley, how would you rate 13 Ghosts?
Okay, I'm not calling it a treat. I'm not calling it a treat. I would call the special like commentary, like the behind the scenes stuff, how they created the house, the ghost, all that shit. That's a treat. The movie itself, it's between trick and smell my feet. Not gonna lie.
Smell my trick.
Yeah.
Trick my feet.
Oh God. No, my name's not
Fantastic.
Quentin Tarantino. I'm not into that. Okay. But yeah, because they're okay. Again, the ghost backstory. Love that. Anytime the ghosts were on screen and crazy shit was about to happen, all about it. The family drama, lack thereof, dynamic could give two shits.
Sure.
And the dialogue, good lord. And Tony Shalhoub was trying. He was trying to make it as sincere and earnest.
Tony winner, Tony Shalhoub.
Tony winner, Emmy Award winner, Tony
Yeah,
Shalhoub. I don't think he's ever been nominated for an Academy Award though.
I don't either.
Yeah, but just Murray Abraham though, what happened to his career? Like at one point, what was there like a drop off?
Oh,
Was
he
that
was just on White Lotus. He was on season
right?
2. He was nominated for it. Yeah, he's great on White Lotus.
Right. But here's the thing. I was looking up like when you were talking about him, I'm like, wait a minute, hold on, let me actually look up his awards and nominations and stuff like that. He's only been nominated and won once for an Academy Award. Still a hell of a lot more than me. I'm gonna put that out there. But yeah, he really wasn't nominated for anything else, and just he was in a lot of schlock after that. Like, what happened to his career?
This.
Oh God. You know what? Edit all this out. Edit all this.
No. All right.
Good Lord.
So you're between a trick and a treat. I think I'm the same place. Listen, I have a love in my heart for this movie in spite of, or perhaps because of its flaws. But for me, it is the ghosts and their appearance and that really make it for me. That's why
That's what it is.
I wanted to spend so much more time talking about them than the actual movie, because there's not a lot to talk about when it comes to the movie. Like Roger Ebert
No.
said, it's a lot of treading the same ground, repeating themselves, and kind of reusing the same. It's like they reuse the same hallways from different camera angles, and we're expected to not recognize that that's what they did.
Okay, I got something that I can throw in here for you. You
Okay.
can add this, you can use this later on for other podcasts. Go nuts. What would you do storyline wise to fix this?
Mm-hmm.
What would you do?
I think it's a bold swing to make it all take place in one night, right? I think because then we're not given much time to slow the original film. And I'm not saying it should have been a direct remake. It takes place over the course of a lot of time of them living there. The thing about the original film is that they are aware of the ghosts almost from the get go, and they want to move out. But if they decide to move out, they get nothing. They get no money or anything. And so that's why they try to make it work. The original movie also has more comedic aspects to it, right?
Oh yeah.
And the immediate threat of these ghosts is not as bad as it is in this movie. Although the little boy that is almost killed as soon as they make contact via a Ouija board. But I think that if it took its time a little bit more. All right, one of the things I like about this movie is that we don't know much about the ghosts. It's just assumed by their appearance. And
Mm-hmm.
yet if we did listen, the ghosts in the original are different. There's a headless lion tamer, and then one of the ghosts is also a lion. We've got
Yeah,
like a homicidal chef. One of the ghosts is just a skeleton that's on fire.
right.
You don't get hardly any background. You get no background from any of them either. I think that if the movie took its time a little bit more with, you know what, let me say this, with the characters that we are supposed to know things about, it would have worked better. I don't need Kalina and her ghost social justice warriorship. The twist of her being in love with, or being a lover and partner to Cyrus, is not interesting. It's surprising, but when you think about it, none of her makes sense.
No.
And while Matthew Lillard is the saving grace as far as characters go, I don't think we
Mm-hmm.
need him either.
Sorry, drop my phone. I'm listening.
I don't think we need his character.
Yeah.
So that's what I
I,
might do.
yeah. Yeah, I hear you on that. I I yeah, I think it would make more sense to me if we start off with actually if we cut no, because I was thinking maybe just cutting the Juggernaut scene and just have them show up at the house like at the top with Matthew Lillard
Hmm.
without all the other exposition in the beginning, because technically there are two openings to this damn movie.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not like Scream where you have Drew Barrymore getting her ass killed and all of a sudden we're now dealing with Nev Campbell. Like that kind of makes sense where it's just like this is the kind of movie that we're gearing up for. With this, it felt like literally two separate openings.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think it
Sure.
would make I think it would be a little bit more creepier, a little bit more if it literally just started off with the family going up to the house, and they can even have a little bit of an exposition being like, look, after mom died, this is what we have to do, and blah, blah, blah. That way it would be a little bit of a surprise hearing the mother's voice versus being like, oh, this is the woman that caught on fire and she's telling her kid to get away from like the danger.
Yeah. Well,
there was so much exposition in the beginning where I'm just like, this is a lot. This is okay. Got it. All right.
I will say, I don't think this movie was ever meant to be anything than what it is, which is fun.
Yeah.
And
stop trying to make it what it is, and got it.
Yeah. Because you know what, the original movie doesn't have the bones to warrant a really intelligent remake. And so that's what I'm going to settle into. I'm going to call it a trick because I do enjoy it. It's one that I will revisit every once in a while. I remember it in my head more fondly than it actually is, and I would rather leave it that way.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's what we got for 13 Ghosts. And hey, Stanley, let's remind our listeners, where they can stalk you.
Oh, you can stalk me at Instagram at Stanley Martin the Third, on my Facebook at Stanley Martin, and on TikTok Stanley Martin.
Fuck yeah. And you can follow the pod on Instagram at Rick Retreat Pod, the website www.rickretreat.com, TikTok at Rick Retreat Pod, on YouTube as Rick Retreat, and pretty soon on Discord. And you can find me through links on all of those. Hey, I've been Ricky J. Duarte. It's been Stanley Martin, and we'll see y'all later, spookies.
Bye.
Thanks for coming Rick or Treating. You can follow the show on Instagram at Rick or Treat Pod. It'd be a real scream if you'd take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review the show on whatever platform you're listening on. The show's spooky intro and outro music is a cover of Camille Saint-Saëns' Danse Macabre, with orchestrations composed and performed by Lestat von Monlicht. Links to the artist's music can be found in the episode description. Check him out, he's frighteningly talented. Rick or Treat Horrorcast is independently produced by me, Ricky J. Duarte of Rick or Treat Productions. If you like what you heard, tell a friend. If you didn't, well, they're coming to get you, listener.